Needless to say, Reishi is taken aback by Yuri's outrageous offer. But giving zero fucks, Yuri doubles down on his offer. He says yes, 10 million a day, 3.6 billion a year, and your country will be saved. Then he adds, I'm not asking for 36 trillion, and honestly, it's a lot less than what Thomas Andre would charge you. Now, apparently, Reishi is the only person who can understand him because he's been speaking Russian this entire time. The other two S-rankers can't understand what he's saying, but they can tell that it doesn't sound good. Yuri continues pitching his offer. He says, become national heroes for 10 million a day, or give up on your country and save a bit of cash. Do you really think you can afford to be picking and choosing right now? You should be on your hands and knees licking my boots. Reishi responds, sounds to me like you're pretty confident about your skills. And Yuri says, of course I am. It'll be more beneficial to hire me than 100 of those losers standing behind you. And although they don't know exactly what he's saying, they did get the gist that they just got disrespected. And then suddenly a force field activates around them. And Yuri says, you won't be able to move a single inch without my permission. But go ahead, give it your best shot. And no matter how hard they tried to move, they couldn't even open their mouths to speak. And they're astounded by the fact that he's able to restrict the movements of not one, but two S ranks completely. He repeats his offer again. I'll block that S rank gate for you, and as a bonus, I'll save your buddies' lives. Reishi humbly responds, thank you for demonstrating your abilities. However, I'm not even sure if the government will sign off on your price. Because at the end of the day, it's their money and it's their decision. On the outside, he's maintaining his composure, but deep down inside, he is furious. Is trusting this guy really our best bet? And then out loud he says, actually, I take that back. You mind if I make a quick call? The point of view then switches to the Jinwoo residence. Sung Jinwoo is in the process of heading out and his mother's in the back looking a little bit worried. She works up the nerve to ask him, I don't have to worry about you, do I? To which he responds, of course not. I just have an appointment to get to. I'll be back as soon as I can, Mom. And then we're shown the key to the Cardinal Temple in his inventory, and the time is slowly winding down. 56 seconds, 32 seconds, 15 seconds, 11 seconds, 6 seconds. As the clock winds down, the key slowly begins to activate, until the system gives him this message: the location of the key's gate will now be revealed. The point of view then switches to Jin'a's school, where apparently another gate is opened. Luckily for them, the school is still closed down from the last incident, so there are no students in the vicinity. A hooded man walks up to the gate, and of course, we know it's Sung Jinwoo, but the hunters that are stationed there are like, hey yo, off limits, what are you doing? Until he removes his hood, and they're like, Sung Jinwoo? He asks them, how long has it been since the gate first spawned? She says 3 days. This brings Sung Jinwoo to the realization that he got played by the system. The system said it would only disclose the location of the gate after a certain period of time, but it never said the gate would appear at that time. And the fact that it's already been 3 days means Jinwoo needs to get on the move before somebody else enters the gate. But unfortunately, it was too late. He asked if another group of hunters already went in, and she said yes, about 2 hours ago. He immediately begins walking towards the gate and tells them this needs to be called off right away. And this confuses her because by their calculations, this gate should be about C rank. But Jinwoo says the strike squad is in danger, and if they don't end the raid right now, everyone will die. And they're still not understanding, but he says, listen, I don't have time to explain, I'm about to go bring them back. Now inside the gate, the guards have already made it to the doors of the Cardinal Temple. And no matter how hard they tried, no matter what spells they used, they couldn't get those doors to budge an inch. And out of nowhere, Sung Jinwoo says from behind them it's a trap, which scared the shit out of him because they didn't know anybody else was there. They ask him to identify himself, and he says someone who survived a double dungeon, which of course confuses them, but then somebody recognizes him as Sung Jinwoo. And then suddenly everybody recognizes him. Oh, that's the S-rank hunter Sung Jinwoo. And he says, terrible danger lies behind those doors. Listen, I got this. I'll take it from here. Y'all go ahead and head back. He reaches to pull the door open and it's locked, and he wonders if it's because of a spell, which honestly, the fact that he was given a key to the doors makes me question, like, bro, are you slow? Clearly you need a key to unlock the doors. Like, what are we doing? The system then activates and says the doors to the Cardinal Temple are currently locked. Please use the key. Goofy ass. Now Sung Jinwoo starting to put 2 and 2 together. He says this is different from last time, so this is why I needed a key. Now nobody else could actually see the key, so to them the doors just open for him. The leader of the party works up the nerve to confront Sung Jinwoo about entering the gate. He says the entry permit for this dungeon was bought by us, the Courage Guild, which means you have no right to tell us to leave. A few people in this party agree with him. They said he's right. Being an S rank doesn't mean you can order us around. Sung Jinwoo is just like, alright dog, whatever. I'm not gonna stop you. Anybody who wishes to enter is free to do so. So Mr. Leaderman, since he spoke up, he's like, alright, I guess I gotta be the one to do it. As soon as he walks in, the system speaks up and says someone has entered the temple without a key. Entry is not permitted. And then almost instantaneously, one of the stone statues attacks. But just at the last minute, Sung Jinwoo pulls his ass back and saves him from being completely crushed. Side note, I'm not even gonna lie, that does look scary as hell. The statues with the red eye and like the shadows and shit, like they really did that. I know the anime is gonna cook. And Jinwoo says, yeah, there's gonna be a lot more of that in there. Do you guys still wanna go inside? I mean, I told you I ain't gonna stop you. And they're like, nah, bro, you got it. And he's like, all right, bet. Now, when y'all leave the dungeon, please contact the association and let them know that this is a double dungeon situation. And then he enters the temple doors and the system activates again, saying the one with the key has entered the temple. And the doors immediately slam shut behind him. Now, the deeper he walks into the temple, the brighter it gets with these torches lined up on the walls. You see the statues lined up on the wall as well, and although they're not moving, they definitely have a presence. Then he finally gets to the archangel looking one in the middle with the tablet of commandments. The final torches at the end of the temple are lit, and now you can see everything just like we saw in that first episode. And Jinwoo just gets this feeling, this is where it all began. I'm finally back to where it all started. But things are different this time around, I can feel that in my bones. These statues are neither beasts nor living things. They're just puppets. Only one being in this room is radiating mana. And then the point of view pans to the statue with the red eyes. You know, that statue. And Sung Jinwoo says, so you're the one in control. And suddenly his eyes slam shut. And Jinwoo says, are you gonna keep your mouth shut? Don't you think it's time you gave me an answer? And then suddenly things get eerily quiet as he stares down the main statue. A devious looking face appears in the shadow of the hood with bright red eyes and sharp teeth. And while smiling a devilish grin, he says, I see you finally made it this far. The point of view switches back to the Japanese airport. Yuri has finally made it to Japan where he's being treated like a bona fide superstar. He's stopped by some reporters who ask him what his strategy is for blocking off the gate, to which he replies by using the same strategy I use all the time. I'm gonna draw a huge magic circle around the gate and pour my mana into it. Simple. And whatever's inside the circle won't be able to get out. The reporter then asks, does that mean you're capable of blocking off an S-rank gate all by yourself? The public isn't quite on board with the idea. What would you like to say to all the skeptics out there? To which he replied, it's actually impossible for me to sustain a barrier on my own. But what's unique about my abilities is my barriers draw mana from the surroundings. So if large quantities of mana crystals are set up around Tokyo, my magic circle will absorb their mana. It's basically like starting up a car. Once I get the barrier up and running, it'll slowly transform into a sturdy wall by sucking up more mana. I'm gonna save each and every one of your lives, so just make sure you remember that. The point of view then switches to Mr. Gogun Heat watching this interview on TV. He says, I'm not sure if Yuri Orlov is capable of blocking off an S-rank gate, but I know what will happen if he fails. And then he asks what Sung Jinwoo is up to these days. Mr. Wu replies, the Ajin Guild's requested entry permits for all gates marked on this list. And Mr. Go's like, all these gates? Yes, sir. However, because they spawned in districts managed by the White Tiger Guild, the Hunters Guild, the Fiend Guild, and a few others, there could be some friction. And Mr. Go says, a new one-man guild that's as strong as any major guild. How amusing. And Mr. Wu agrees. He then asks if there's anything else. And Mr. Wu explains that they asked if they could take care of a nearby gate for the next week due to unspecified reasons. Mr. Go gives his blessing, saying it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Suddenly Mr. Wu gets a call and he has to excuse himself, which ends the conversation. Mr. Wu answers the phone and he's given a report about Jin'A's school. Another gate popped up in the same location, and although nothing crazy has happened yet, it has been determined to be a double dungeon. If you can't tell by the look on his face, I think bro got a little PTSD hearing the word double dungeon. He also tells him that Sung Jinwoo has entered said dungeon. Speaking of Sung Jinwoo, the point of view switches back to the Cardinal Temple. Here we see the hooded statue holding the tablet of commandments, but then something extremely interesting happens. He begins squeezing the tablet until it shatters into dust. And while the fragments of the commandments fall to the ground, he says, I see you finally made it this far. Sung Jinwoo responds, I guess those so-called commandments never meant anything, huh? And while donning a devilish grin, the hooded figure says, oh, they meant something. As of now, they are no longer important. Jinwoo asks, are you the one who called me here? The hooded figure smiles and responds, yes, and Sung Jinwoo hits him with a follow-up question. Are you a magic beast? And the hooded figure responds, you're asking the wrong questions. Instead of asking who I am, you need to be asking who you are. Suddenly you see the eyes of the surrounding statues glow red as they awaken to action. Now shall be your final test, and if you're standing on your feet by the end, I will tell you everything. As the army of stone soldiers moves in closer, he says, that will be my reward to you. Almost instinctively, Jinwoo summons a shadow army, saying, come forth. The hooded statue snaps his finger and cancels a shadow summon. He says, that won't do. This is a test and no cheating is allowed. The system then gives an alert. The use of job-specific skills is not permitted for the final test. The hooded statue says, you're the only one I wish to assess. I don't care about your servant's abilities. The system shows another message reading, you are no longer authorized to purchase potions or other items from the shop. You are also not allowed to use quest rewards or level up rewards for status recovery. And for a second, Jinwoo is taken aback. He quickly recovers and says, so this is how it's gonna be, huh? Soldiers continue moving in closer and closer, and Jinwoo says, I didn't think all the cards in my hand would end up being useless. Suddenly, the first soldier cocks his arm back to launch his spear. Jinwoo thinks to himself, well, I can still use my inventory. In that case, I'll defeat everyone using my own strength. The soldier launches his spear directly at Sung Jinwoo. Instead of dodging it, Sung Jinwoo catches it with his hands, breaks the spear in two, cocks his arm back to return it to sender. He lands a direct hit smack dab in the middle of the eyes. Before the stone soldier can even react, Sung Jinwoo kicks the fragment of the spear straight through his head. One of the axe-wielding soldiers moves in to try to catch Sung Jinwoo off guard. Sung Jinwoo pulls out his double daggers to block the attack, ends up slicing the axe in two. Before the fragments of the axe could even hit the ground, he launches himself in that stone soldier's direction. He lands on the head of the soldier and digs both daggers deep into his skull. Before he can finish the job, his spidey senses start tingling and he looks around. One of the bow-wielding statues fires an arrow in his direction, but Sung Jinwoo snaps the arrow in half out of mid-air, somersaults off the head of the soldier he was fighting, and kicks the arrow back in the direction of the sender. Lands a direct headshot and incapacitates the archer. And in Jinwoo's head, he's thinking, yeah, that's right. I've been waiting for this moment. Oh, scratch that. I've been living for this moment. Meanwhile, the hooded statue is marveling at Sung Jinwoo's growth. He says, you've achieved so much with the body of a human. I'm truly impressed with how much you've grown. Jinwoo is still battling all the soldiers. At this point, they're trying to jump him. Like he said before, this time is totally different. Before, those statues were moving so fast it looked like they were teleporting, but now he can see each and every movement. Each of them are extremely powerful, but he knows deep down inside he can do this. And then here we have the hooded statue glazing him down again, looking like a proud father, saying truly impressive growth. It's still too early for this test to end, and suddenly the temple itself starts shaking wall to wall. A new statue just awakened, and this one the biggest of them all, and probably familiar to some of you guys who watched the first season. And then we're shown a colossal sized statue staring down at him. Just for your reference, this is how big he is. You see his head almost touches the ceiling. This is how big Sung Jinwoo and the other statues are. Like, I thought the other ones were big. Nah, this new one is massive. He makes the other ones look like regular sized humans. Suddenly he cracks that devilish smile from the first episode. Hooded statue says, now it's time to worship God. Point of view switches to a meeting between Go-Gun-Hee and the chairman of the Japanese Hunters Association, Mr. Matsumoto. Chairman Matsumoto just offered a contract that'll give up all the rights to the Essence Stones mined from Jeju Island. And Go-Gun-Hee is completely confused at this because why would they fork over so much treasure? And Matsumoto says because in return we'd like to hire Mr. Sung Jinwoo. And mind you, he's Korean, he's Japanese, so they're speaking two different languages. They have translators in the middle helping them out. This will be important later. Mr. Go laughs out loud and says, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but Sung Jinwoo is not an affiliate of the Hunters Association, which basically means Go has no control over this matter. Matsumoto says, I'm aware of that, however, we can't get in touch with him without the help of the Korean Hunters Association. I'm not asking you to put in a good word for me. All I ask is that you give me a chance to negotiate with him. And here we see Mr. Go thinking to himself, I can't believe they're willing to give up such an astronomical amount of money just for a chance to talk to him? Is it because they don't have the power to block off the S-rank gate that recently spawned in Tokyo now that Goto Ryuji's gone? This isn't a bad offer considering Sung Jinwoo's performance record, but then it's evident on Mr. Go's face that he's come to a conclusion that the reader doesn't know yet. Now switching over from Korean to Japanese, he says, I'd like to discuss these matters without interpreters. And this shocks Matsumoto because he did not know he spoke Japanese. And Mr. Go says, my father ran a small business in Japan when I was young. So after the interpreters left the room, he continues, Chairman Matsumoto, if this is another one of your crafty little schemes, I suggest you end it now. He says, what do you mean by that? And Go says, I've heard rumors that the Blade Guild has cut ties with you. Mr. Matsumoto is visibly shaken by the fact that he knows this. Mr. Go continues, it was pretty obvious. I could tell something was up when the Blade Guild rejected funding from the Japanese Hunters Association and only accepted government subsidies? The Blade Guild used to be at the beck and call of the Japanese Hunters Association. Because of Goto Ryuji, you were able to rally all the S ranks when you needed to, but that's not the case anymore. There's probably a power struggle going on between the other guilds now that the Blade Guild has fallen apart, and the association must be failing to control the situation. Isn't that right? Bro is reading this man like a Dr. Seuss book. He continues, if you guys fail to block off the S-rank gate, you'll be forced to take accountability for this. And though he had malicious intentions, Goto Ryuji was a hunter that represented Japan. So his death, the downfall of the Blade Guild, the mismanaged conflicts between the Japanese guilds, and the sacrifices that were made because of your crafty ploy, everything falls on your shoulders. Then he pushes forward a tape in Mr. Matsumoto's direction. A camera was connected to your receiver, one that belonged to Goto's team. And then with a venomous stare and glowing eyes, he said, did you really think I wouldn't find out? This is hardly the time for you to be negotiating with Essence Stones. If this information becomes public, the people of Japan will have to deal with the consequences of your crooked schemes. Then Mr. Go smashes the tape recording in his hand. No, excuse me, he smashes the entire table with the tape recording in his hand. But then he dials it back a little bit and says, however, I'm not cold-hearted enough to do something so cruel. I wouldn't want an entire country, no, all of Asia to be plunged into a crisis because of one man's ploy. And for that grace, you'll have to thank Mr. Sung Jinwoo for this one. The point of view switches back to Sung Jinwoo in the middle of the fight of his life. He's beheading these stone soldiers left and right, but it's like the more he destroys, the more keep coming. And on top of that, there's still the ginormous one in the background gearing up to make a move. He says it's too late to dodge their attacks, so in that case, he puts away his weapons in order to free his hands to activate Commander's Touch, which pulls 3 or 4 soldiers together into one giant cluster. Suddenly, the giant statue fires these brilliant beams of light from his eyes. Using Commander's Touch, Jinwoo moved the clusters of soldiers in between him and the beam. Their bodies of stone were doing a pretty good job blocking the laser, but you can slowly see it seeping through. Then suddenly, the system activates and says, "Skill, the Commander's Touch has been upgraded to its final form, Commander's Authority." And just as the laser beam finally breaks through the stone cluster, Sung Jinwoo sidesteps it, narrowly dodging its area of effect. He says to himself, "I have to get rid of this guy first," referring to the giant statue. He activates a speed burst and beams in the direction of the statue. The giant lifts his foot in an attempt to stomp Sung Jinwoo before he can make it to him, by slamming it on the ground and destroying everything in its vicinity. Then we see the giant crack that devilish grin, thinking he successfully stopped Sung Jinwoo's advance. But that smile quickly turned to surprise, as we see Sung Jinwoo leaping from the cloud of dust in the direction of the giant's head. As a rebuttal, we see the giant gearing up to fire another laser beam. And Jinwoo says, "If I combine my speed with the Commander's Authority skill, I'll be able to go straight for its blind spot." What he means by this is the giant is huge. There's no way he can use Commander's Authority effectively and move him. So by trying to, we'll create a gravitational pull effect that'll help give him a little bit extra speed along with the speed he already has. He activates Commander's Authority and doubles his speed by catapulting himself towards the giant's head, which was just enough to narrowly pull him outside the laser beam's line of fire. Jinwoo says the gravitational pull is incredibly strong. I only used a fraction of my power, but it still worked on the target this large. That upgrade made a huge difference. Sung Jinwoo is now on his shoulder, and for the very first time, the statue looks worried. He launches an attack called Mutilation, which slashes the statue's face an immeasurable amount of times. But when the dust settled, those slashes were merely scratches and a smile returned to the giant's face. Jinwoo says the Demon King's dagger can usually slice through anything, but it only left scratches this time. So now he has to adjust his strategy. He says, "Well, if I can't slice through it, then I'll use brute force. I just have to aim for that crevice." And by that crevice, he's referring to one of the deeper slashes he made right by the crack of his mouth. So basically, he has to punch the giant in the jaw. He begins focusing all of his mana in his right arm. With glowing eyes, he cocks that motherfucker back and punches the giant in the mouth so hard that you literally see his cheek jiggling. And remember, bro is a stone statue. But Sung Jinwoo isn't done. He cocks that motherfucker back again and lets the giant have it a second time, and then a third time, and a fourth time, and he tells him, "I'm gonna show you what it means to be level 103. And now the colossal giant has lost balance and falls face first on the ground, creating a massive explosion. Jinwoo lands on the ground right between 3 smaller stone soldiers. At first, they're a little bit confused, but they quickly get over it and launch an attack. But Jinwoo is ready for him. He activates his Commander's Authority skill, this time unleashing a force that slams the giant's face down on the ground, pancake style. He looks around to see if there are any more stone statues, but it looks like he took care of them. Thinks to himself, "Thanks to this battle, I feel like I've grown even more powerful," while clenching his fist. The hooded statue claps while saying, "Impressive, impressive." Jinwoo says, "You better keep your promise." The hooded statue laughs and says, "This test isn't over yet, my boy. Can't you see? I'm still here." Then the system sends him a message saying an urgent request has arrived. "I am your final test," says the hooded statue. But suddenly the system starts acting weird. It gives him a message that your heart will stop beating if you fail to defeat the enemy within the allotted amount of time, and the time is 10 minutes. But suddenly the system and the hooded statue are speaking in unison. Sung Jinwoo was like, "Who the hell are you?" The system and the hooded statue both say, "I'm pretty sure I told you that was a silly question. But fine, I'll give you an answer. You want to know who I am? I am the architect of the system." The stone is slowly chipping away. You're seeing a little bit more of a brighter blue face underneath. And of course, while still donning a devilish grin, he asks, "Are you satisfied with my answer?"